10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Game over.
Welcome to Game Over Montreal. We thought it was going to be the usual result there for a few seconds. The Blues scored late and took a 2-1 lead, but the Canadiens got it out. Unfortunately, our trade deadline special with CJ will have to wait. His stomach turned during the broadcast when he was on TSN. Can't make it tonight. We're going to figure out a time where it's going to happen. I apologize for that, but Julian and I, who I'm bringing in right now, are going to break down the Canadiens' first win in, how long it's been, Julian? I saw somebody say 11 games. It feels more like 50.
This is their second win since Christmas.
Whew.
I think the last time was January 18th, I want to say, which would have come against either Dallas. It was against Dallas. It was the game when Tyler Seguin and Jonathan Drouin got into it.
That's right. Yeah, the Dallas game. That was a fun game. Another game where Montembeault was amazing, right?
Yeah. Well, Sam Montembeault, I'll give him this. Like, especially over these last few games under Martin St. Louis, like he's responded pretty well to how the team has played much better in front of him. He hasn't cost them games because of goaltending. I'm going to try to write about it later tonight for The Athletic, but I think of anyone on that Canadiens roster who deserves like a win, it's Sam Montembeault. Cole Caulfield, we'll get to him, I'm sure. He's working hard to try to get himself goals, and other guys on the team are doing what they can to just kind of enhance their confidence. But at the end of the day, like it's been said all the time, if your goalie tend the goal, and they're the ones who ultimately let those pucks in or keep them out to preserve a victory or lead to a loss. So Sam Montembeault, if there's anyone who deserves a win, it's him. And that 10-game winless streak is finally over for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, it's been a rough time for the Montreal Canadiens, and frankly, since the coaching change, I think we can all agree that the way that they've been losing has been better than before, right? Like they're not getting blown out every game. They're not competing, to repeat a double negative there. And I mean, frankly, what can we say about Cole friggin' Caulfield? Because playoff Caulfield is back in the building. I don't know what was going on this year. The crisis of confidence, maybe Dom Ducharme not using him the way he thought he should be used. I don't know. I don't have the inside information on that. But playing for Martin St. Louis, 4 goals in 4 games, plus 1 called back that probably should have still been a goal. Manufacturing the tying goal and the winning goal on this one. Like, this kid, I said all season long, I'm not worried about him. He's proven me right. No one should have been worried about him. We talked the last Game Over that I hosted, which I know, Julian, you've been hosting more than me lately. This is like your third or fourth episode in a row on this show.
This is a third in a row, man.
Yeah,
am I supposed to host one on the weekend too, or am I
yes,
not?
On Sunday, yeah.
So I'm gonna do like 4 of these in a row.
Yep.
That's
the way it's going.
Man, I gotta give myself a break.
Yeah, you're talking about a break. I think after the Olympics are over, I'm just gonna like peace out, not do this.
Yeah, just vanish.
Adam will be like knocking at the door. Where are you?
Who's gonna do this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you are, Adam. You're a Habs fan now, just like your dad. But
his dad is a Habs fan?
I think so. I think that was like a thing. Yeah, because his dad has like French Canadian lineage, I believe, and like grew up a Habs fan but became a Leafs fan. I think that's the story that he told on SDPN back in the day. Now,
okay,
the whole Cole thing is like I talked about it the last time I hosted, which feels like forever ago because I've been doing so much of the Game Over international stuff. We did like a over-under with the people on the stream chat and Lori Bennett, who was here, on 15 goals the rest of the way. I'm starting to think maybe 20.
Wow. Yeah. I was bringing that up on one of the streams I was on with Max Van Hoot, and he made a similar tweet saying like, hey, we got to think about the over-under with Cole Caulfield. And I'm wondering if he had a point. Like, well, I mean, he very much had 2 points at least tonight, but Cole Caulfield very much looking way more engaged, way more confident out there. You saw him playing late in the third period to get himself that OT goal, being used in OT. He's a different player. He's obviously energized at the thought of playing for a guy he once looked up to and once wore his number. A coach who I know this firsthand as someone who spoke to Martin St. Louis during the playoffs, a guy who knows Caulfield can play in just about any era of hockey, or at least he feels that way, and knows that he could play at the National Hockey League level. Like, it's one thing for a guy like Cole Caulfield to have a different voice kind of energize him. But like, the coach that he has right now is a guy who has made it publicly known that he believes in him, that he thinks he's a good player. And yes, I understand that happened when Cole Caulfield was playing well, but that's still a really big deal. Like, anyone could just say like, hey, Cole Caulfield's doing well. It's a totally different situation when a Hall of Famer who has a similar skill set to him is out here saying that he's a good player. And again, this was months before we even thought the Canadiens would be terrible or Martin St. Louis would take over behind the bench. You have to look. I mean, I get that the fact that there's a new voice telling him what to do and putting him in situations to help obviously makes a difference. But you can't tell me the fact that it's this particular man, this particular person, the resume that he has doesn't make a difference. Like, it absolutely does.
100% it does. The gravitas that Martin St. Louis has is undeniable. And like, did you see the video that went around of Cole Caulfield wearing 26 as a little kid? I was like, yes. Wow, he's only grown a foot, but he's like 7 years old.
Actually true.
And I say that with love because I'm a short guy too. So no disrespect to Cole Caulfield. I love seeing the short kings crush it in the NHL. But this whole dynamic is actually exciting. And I feel like it's the first exciting thing about this Montreal Canadiens season. And that is something that I think fans are energized about. For those who are just tuning in, I see a question here from Thomas in the stream chat saying, yo, Andrew, can you ask Julian and Chris about Lafreniere in New York? You reckon they would ever let him go? We will ask Chris that. Absolutely. Chris cannot make it tonight. He started feeling ill last minute. So it's just Julian and I today. We will do a Canadiens trade deadline special at some point over the next month here before the trade deadline. If we can't fit it in before trade deadline, that's fine. CJ can bring insider information after the trade deadline about what will happen at the draft. We can do it at any time. We're hoping to do it quick, but CJ's a busy man. We got to fit it in when we can fit it in. We love him here, and I saw a bunch of comments early in the stream talking about the SDPN cinematic universe and the crossovers. Yes, eventually, I can't share too much information, but eventually there will be an SDPN Avengers moment, and it's not going to be that far away. I promise.
Doesn't this already kind of count? Sort of? No?
I mean, yeah, we're crossing over. This is like, Strange and Spider-Man meeting up in a movie, right? Or like yeah, or like we'll say like at most like Civil War or something like that. Not that
we've been on each other's shows before. You've been on mine with the Montreal Gazette with Hockey Inside Out, and we have a good rapport ensemble. Like we've done the crossover before. It's just that we're not CJ or Steve.
Yeah,
that's probably why.
There will be some crossovers, and I will say there is. Steve still has to confirm with me again because he doesn't like being nailed down, but he did say that Steve Dangle is going to be on February 23rd with me against the Sabres. So mark that in your calendars that Steve Dangle is going to be coming on Game Over Montreal. And if he bails, we're going to beat him up. He's not as busy as CJ.
Also, Steve, if you're watching this or if you come across this, on that day, don't eat any hot food. Don't eat any whack food. Don't order from some place that you've never eaten before in your life. Make sure there's no salmonella on whatever you're cooking. Make sure that you're good ahead of that day, or else you will get beaten up.
Well, when I was watching the game today and I saw CJ on the broadcast, I was like, what is he doing volunteering to come on the show on a day he's actually working? This madman.
That's one of my favorite things, honestly, just like watching a Canadiens game, because I'll watch on the TSN broadcast. For whatever reason, if you have TSN Direct, it doesn't mean you could have RDS Direct. So I am unfortunately deprived of the wonderful stylings of Pierre Hood, the OG, to listen to if you are in Montreal or in Quebec. But Dan Robertson is a more than worthy alternative to listen to. Great guy, great personality, absolutely great at his job. But yeah, like in the intermissions, you'll see like insider trading segments, and you'll see CJ like wearing a suit and like looking all nice, and you're just like, all right, he's just working, he's just doing his thing. This man did a podcast with me this morning on his own show, and he was doing TSN, and we thought we were gonna have him here today, but he's not here. But he's a busy man. We get it.
It is.
He has like 3 jobs.
If you feel sick, you feel sick, right? I'm not gonna force CJ to do the show when he's not feeling right. It's different, you know. It's on TSN, yeah, you got through it, but for a live YouTube show, maybe you go to bed.
Today might have been like his flu game.
Exactly. Yeah, you never know. Yeah, CJ pushed through it for TSN. He will push through it for here eventually. We're gonna get him on, and we love CJ, and we'll be so happy when we actually bring him on. But it'll be another time.
Big money CJ, he'll be back.
100%, he'll be back. It'll be awesome. People really latched on to me saying I'm gonna beat Dangle up. I mean, I've beat him up. I've beat him up with words many a time. So,
could you? Well, okay, be real here. You've opened the door now. 1-on-1 with a fight with Dangle, who wins?
I mean, I think I have more fight experience, but it depends whose back gives out, because we both got bad backs. So it's like, who gets injured first? It'd be like
watching 2 washed men like go at it.
No, you know the movie Up, where the 2 old men start fighting and they both like raise their canes up in the air and they get stuck. That's it right there.
Y'all gonna need walkers.
Just a wheelchair fight.
Washed up men.
Oh god, charity boxing match. You know what I would probably lose to Steve, because he's got cardio on me. I have just not kept in shape the way Steve has. So
that's a shame.
That's what would probably go.
You know what he should do though,
especially
if he's not going to do the charity boxing match. That's probably a good idea. Like, have the money go to sick kids or something. But if he's not going to do that,
I'd have to actually.
If he's not going to do that, if he's not going to do that, make him do the gauntlet.
Oh yes. Hot Ones Gauntlet for Sick Kids Hospital. Let's get that
everyone
done.
In the comments right now. Right in the comments, Steve Dangle, Hot Ones Gauntlet for Sick Kids.
I bet you could raise a lot of money.
I bet we could raise a good amount of money if we got Steve Dangle to do this. Tweet it out. Everyone in the comments right now. I don't mean to hijack Andrew's show. Go in the live chat. Everyone in the live chat, go on Twitter, go on social media, wherever you can tag Steve Dangle and ask him to do the Hot Ones Gauntlet for the Sick Kids Foundation and see what he says. If we pester him enough, maybe he'll do it. Even I don't think he's good with hot food. It doesn't matter. It's for these kids.
I feel like Jesse could do like odds where like people could bet on like how long it takes him to take a sip of milk. Because we know Julian and I, the champions, did not take any sips of milk.
Yes, sir.
We went through the whole thing.
Yes, we did.
We should probably talk about the game a little bit. I mean, we touched on Sam Montembeault. Fantastic game tonight. I mean, matching Husso, who's been arguably the best goaltender in the NHL over the last couple of months here. I'm impressed. I don't know what changed with Montembeault a couple months ago, but I know he battled through injury here for a bit when they were really struggling and at the end of Ducharme's tenure, and he was getting lit up just like Primo. But man, something changed around maybe the new year for Montembeault, and he looks so much more controlled in net for me.
Yeah, I think he looks like someone who, I think when he was first playing his first few games for the Canadiens, just getting acclimatized to everything, he looked more like a liability. He looked like more of a goalie who, would have a bad night, and essentially his goaltending could play a role in why the team would lose games. But as of recently, I don't think that's the case. You could make an argument that maybe the addition of Andrew Hammond would make some kind of change, because right now,
psychologically,
Michael McNeven is one less goalie off of IR right now. He's down in Laval. Jake Allen, who knows when he'll be back, but maybe he'll be back. It seems as if he'll be back sooner to the lineup than Carey Price will, but who knows what that happens. If they get those two back, obviously those two will be the tandem. But if you're Sam Montembeault right now and one of those goalies comes back, like, at first we were thinking, okay, Montembeault would easily be the battery mate, but the Canadiens have Andrew Hammond now, who, you put him in net, you're not going to mind if he's going to get shelled a couple times a night, because the Canadiens are not in the interest of winning. But in the interest of trying to hold down an NHL job, Sam Montembeault, it's in his best interest to play his best hockey. I mean, we almost saw him do it like almost instantaneously when Hammond was acquired over the weekend. I believe on the Saturday, he had that outstanding game against the Columbus Blue Jackets where he made 40 saves. Not as good the following night against the Buffalo Sabres, but Sam Montembeault has looked good. He's looked like a fine goalie as much as you can. And we also understand, obviously, the context of the season as it is, they have not won many games, but you can't say, especially since Martin St. Louis took over, that Sam Montembeault is the reason why the Canadiens lost those games, those first few games of St. Louis' tenure. And he definitely did his part to keep his team in it tonight.
Yeah, 100%. And, one of the things that I'm looking at here, somebody pointed out, Suzuki played 24-44 tonight. I feel like he played a ton last game as well. Clearly, St. Louis is not afraid to lean on Nick Suzuki, and he shouldn't be. I mean, Suzuki has proven that he could play those minutes. It's just a lot to ask from a player, but he doesn't really have much down the center line right now with Dvorak out of the lineup, right? Like, there's not much of a choice. I am liking one thing about St. Louis, aside from like having them play competitively and clearly they're motivated. It seems like he is leaning on the players who have a future, right? And that, like, he's not trying to balance lines and roll four lines. He's trying to put things together that work and get them some confidence right now. And that's something that I was waiting for Ducharme to do all season long. Like, the idea of sticking Anderson with Caulfield and Suzuki tonight, trying to get, like, Anderson's speed to kind of open up the ice for those guys. Interesting idea. I don't know if it'll work long term, but it's interesting. It's three guys who will probably be here next year, because you probably can't trade Anderson even if you wanted to with that contract. So that I like to see. But I'm looking at this and I saw a couple comments here ragging on Jeff Petry a little bit. I just want to say, yes, Jeff Petry took a third period penalty. I know he took a penalty against Columbus as well. I know that the one against Columbus was pretty soft. I thought the one in this game was a little bit soft too. The fact is, since the coaching change, Jeff Petry's underlying numbers have been spectacular. He also set up the game-winning goal, 2 assists tonight, I believe. Like, I don't know, Jeff Petry is kind of looking like he's back a little bit to me. And he's always taken bad penalties, like even at his peak. So, I don't know. I'm liking Jeff Petry lately.
I'll say this, like, another thing he did as well, he scored against the Buffalo Sabres on Sunday. In fact, that game on Sunday, I know it ended up being the big Jeff Skinner game and they won 5-3, but Jeff Petry scored that game. Yoel Armia scored that game, and Mike Hoffman scored that game. The Canadiens got contributions from, yes, they got contributions from guys who absolutely need to contribute offensively. And Jeff Petry being in that position, I think that does well for his confidence. Yes, he took those penalties tonight and as well against the Columbus Blue Jackets. That last one against the Jackets ended up being a lot more devastating than the one he took tonight. And he's got to limit that, but he's at least showing some good. And that's another guy who I think he's stepped up in the last few games. And it seems as if he's liking what he's learning from Martin St. Louis and the rest of the coaching staff now. So that's another guy who, it doesn't seem as if him and Dominic Ducharme were the best of friends, but then again, who could really be the best of friends as a player with a coach? But yeah, it looks as if he's looked okay under the St. Louis regime.
Yeah, and I think one thing we have to keep in mind, and like I said similar when I was on with Lori last week with the whole Ducharme thing, and I think it's really easy to rag on him, and obviously him and Petry didn't see eye to eye this season. But there's a lot of opportunities to not see eye to eye with people when you're losing all the time, right?
Very true.
Anytime a team loses anywhere close to the way that the Canadiens have been losing this season, you hear talk about like locker room upset and like people who are getting on each other's nerves. And like, yeah, when nothing is going right for you, little things that you might have overlooked while you were winning start to piss you off. Like, you think back to the last time the Canadiens kind of bottomed out before they traded PK Subban and Laura Zeller in the offseason in 2016. Yeah, 2015, 16.
2016. Yes.
You heard for the first time about friction in that locker room, whereas like the year before that, where they were a top end team, you heard about, oh, this is the tightest locker room that Montreal has seen in years. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, PK and Pacioretty are at each other's throats, and they kind of tried to rebut those rumors, but it didn't work. Things like that happen when there's a lot of losses. So I would assume that a year removed from right now, Petry would probably speak about Dom Ducharme a little bit more softly than he would off the record right now. And I think Dom Ducharme's going to coach in this league again. I know people are really down on him.
Really?
I think so. Yeah, I look at the hand that he was dealt this year, and yes, he did not do much to fix it. But we got to remember, this is his first head coaching gig in the National Hockey League. He's going from an assistant coach to a head coach, which frankly is a hard transition because you go from being buddies with the players to being the authority figure, right? And he has a great track record. I know part of it in junior comes on a very dominant, stacked Halifax team. And, you know, Team Canada is also dominant and stacked, but he got it done, right? And I don't know. I think that he's a relatively smart guy. The big thing that was his downfall is his stubbornness, right? Because there were reports that came out that players came to him early in the season and said, like, what we're doing is not working. And he was like, yeah, okay, I'll listen to you. I'm doing my own thing, which is a coach's prerogative. He's the boss, right? But when things aren't working and they continue to not work for a very long time, maybe you got to switch things up a little bit. And we've seen that now, that a couple of switch ups, very mild switch ups from Martin St. Louis, because there's only so much you can do in season, have had, like, they paid big dividends. Just look at how they're playing defensively. The change up from a zone defense to more of a man-on-man has changed the way that the Canadiens defend in their own zone significantly, and they're getting much better results.
Absolutely. And it makes people like Sam Montembeault look a little bit better in net. I wanted to float something that I mentioned, I think, on a bonus episode that's going to come up on Hockey Inside Out, and I want to know your thoughts on it. I think Dominic Ducharme will return as a coach, as an assistant coach with the Arizona Coyotes if Andre Tourigny keeps his job.
I see that happening.
I see the fit. I don't know if it'll be for next year at this point. Maybe Dominic Ducharme chills with the 1.7 million he's supposed to be making this year. Maybe he says, you know what, let's try something new in Arizona and you know, get your bearings up with the Arizona Coyotes and coach those guys up in your 3,200 seat arena at ASU. However, that's going to work.
God,
all right.
That's embarrassing. It's a tangent for a different day, but
different day, different podcast. But yeah, maybe that works. I'm trying to think of some other benches that would work, but the only way back for Ducharme, I think he has to be an assistant coach somewhere in the National Hockey League. But I think there are some spots. Arizona is the first one that comes to mind because Andre Tourigny looks as if he at least has some familiarity with Ducharme. I think he was interviewed about Ducharme in a Journal de Montréal article before those two teams were supposed to play against each other earlier in the season. So I could see him saying, hey, you know, we could use your experience to come behind the bench. I think it wouldn't surprise me if he came back in that role. It would surprise me way more if some team like the Flyers, for example, were like, all right, dude, come coach this team.
Yeah, I could see it happening. I think just based on my non-insider opinion, it doesn't seem like Ducharme has the kind of ego where he would not ever be an assistant coach now that he's been a head coach. You know what I mean? Like, right. He doesn't seem like that kind of person. He would go where the fit makes sense. And I don't know if he'd do that while he's still making, like, while he stands to give up $1.7 million, because assistant coaches don't make that. But eventually, I could see that happening if he's not happy sitting around doing like pro scouting for the Canadiens while not doing coaching. A couple comments here. Marco Dror says, hey, what do you guys think about the rumor of Chiarot and Lehkonen for a second and a third and Kravtsov and Nils Lundqvist? Personally, I feel like we're getting robbed if it goes through.
Wait. I just want to say something. If it's from where I think it is, there's a guy who made that tweet yesterday, and it was just like some dude tweeting it, and it ended up turning into a whole rumor. I heard some journalist who I'm not going to name was saying like, yeah, that's the package I heard. And I was like, wow, like that sounds pretty extravagant. And then I saw that tweet and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not legit. So maybe there's some deal out there, but maybe it isn't. But I think Patrick Nemeth was part of that package, and Patrick Nemeth is on the IR now for COVID complications. So I don't know, but let's be mindful. It's silly season. So a lot of people are going to come up with these bum accounts and try to pass off as insiders. You know, I don't pretend to be an expert. Berkshire, I mean,
we're very humble about what we know and what we don't know, right?
Exactly.
I always try to be very
You
upfront.
don't pretend to be an expert.
No,
Yes,
no.
Exactly.
I don't pretend to be an insider. If I know something, I'll say I know something. And if I
Me too.
am speculating or just firing my own thoughts out there, I'll be very clear about that as well. Usually,
there's a reason why I do the podcast with CJ, because I
Exactly.
don't know as much as I want to know, and I want to know more stuff.
but now you got a pipeline, right? You got a nice pipeline. Here's a question for CJ when you next talk to him. Every trade deadline, we see fake Drager, fake LeBron. Is this the first deadline we see fake CJ accounts?
Yeah,
I don't think I've seen one
this is it.
before.
I've never seen a fake CJ account, and there's a part of me that thinks the fact that we even mentioned it now, someone is going to do it.
This is SDPN.
memes.
Yeah, it's gonna be
SDPN
all over the
memes.
SDPN Discord. Everybody fake CJ
Oh.
accounts. Oh, what have we done?
Every like third tweet's gonna be like, I like pickles or some shit, or like I'm the juggernaut, bitch, or something. I don't know, man. We just create a monster.
Oh no! Awful. All right. I didn't take notes really for this game because I was planning on doing a bunch of trade questions with CJ. So we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants here. But
I was writing the whole time.
Well, I hope
it's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's what we can do. Let's talk about something that really stuck out. Both of us talked about it in our little DM chat during the game. In the last couple minutes there, I guess the last minute of the game, with the net empty, Brendan Gallagher, my God, this guy only knows how to play one way. Dives face first, knocks the puck that's going into the net just wide, crashes into the post. That saved the game, man. Like, Brendan Gallagher, how can
That's
you
a
not
hustle
respect him?
That's a hustle play. That is just Brendan Gallagher. That's the best play he's done all year. This is a guy
Arguably.
not even arguably. That is the best play he's done all year. I'm going to put that up against any other goal he scored or any other big move. That is the best play he's done all year. Brendan Gallagher has labored through much of this season, wincing and like pregame skates and just trying to play through injury. Eventually takes time off. Then he returns. He looks healthy. He looks energized. And the fact that he's able to do stuff like that, that is the Brendan Gallagher of old that a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans are used to. And the fact that he was able to do that and it turned into a game-tying goal later in the period and eventually the OT winner. I mean, you got to remember that play. Cole Caulfield deserves all the praise for those 2 goals. But that late save from Brendan Gallagher, that might have been the save of the night.
Absolutely. And I feel like it energized the bench too. The fact that he would make that sacrifice and that he cared that much, right? Like he was showing, listen, we're not giving up on this game. And I didn't think they were going to tie it because the Blues are pretty good defensively and like Husso's amazing, right? So the fact that they actually got that and the cross crease pass to Cole, he found the empty net there. And then in overtime, the overtime reminded me of last season when they were just kind of limping into the playoffs and they were terrible in overtime all season long, just like they've been this year. I think going into this game, they were 0-7 in overtime or something like that.
They were bad.
Yeah, very bad. So my thoughts going into the overtime or like watching that overtime was that it reminded me of those last few games of the year where they had that trio of Suzuki, Petry, and Caulfield that just consistently found ways to win games. And I think it was always Caulfield who was scoring the winning goal. He had like 3 overtime goals in the last couple games of the season there.
Yeah.
It just brought a little bit of that magic back, right? And that was the one thing heading into that playoffs that was giving people some positive ideas about that series against Toronto. It was like, look at these guys. These guys are going to kill it, right? And then they scratched Caulfield right off the bat.
The first 2 games of the playoffs.
Oh, God.
Here's the thing. Dominic Ducharme, I hate to make this back about Dominic Ducharme. A lot went bad for him. The whole COVID thing. just the compressed schedule, just being named head coach partway through the season and basically using his morning skates to kind of implement his system, all the players that were lost to free agency and injury in the offseason leading to the team that we have now. Dominic Ducharme, it cannot be forgotten. He was dealt a bad hand due to circumstances. But with the hand that he was dealt, he did not always play it well.
No,
I think the fact that he scratched both Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Cole Caulfield to start off the postseason, that is still a big strike against him.
100%.
And the fact that the Canadiens were able to, I mean, they did go to the Stanley Cup final, but like maybe they could have been in a better situation if Cole Caulfield was not scratched, because he turned himself into a star in the playoffs with the contributions he was able to do. And for a guy who has the skill set that he has, which is to score goals, like the Canadiens fans have been starving for that for over a decade. Like you can't mess with that. The Canadian, he's the most important prospect to this franchise in quite some time, and you cannot mess with his development. So, not to bring up some more shade at Dominic Ducharme here, but man, like it just, with the way that he kind of handled things, there's a reason why he's gone.
Yeah, he earned a little bit of that shade, right? Like
he did.
I don't think his career's over, like we said, but he's got some things to learn. And I think not trusting young players is one of those things, outside of Suzuki, who everyone trusts because he's like defense first master guy. So a couple questions here in the stream chat. Somebody was asking, Robert was saying Gallagher deserves the C, and other people were saying, I wouldn't give him the C because he's too emotional. I lean towards also not having Gallagher as the captain. I feel like you can be the heartbeat of a team and not be the captain. I think his relationship with officials is not very good. And there's certain things that you want from captains that Gallagher doesn't bring. But like having an A makes sense. I think he's had an A for a long time now.
Yeah.
Leon or Leon, I don't know how you want that pronounced, buddy, but he says Gallagher is the adrenal gland of the team. That is accurate.
He's the what?
The adrenal gland of the team, so it creates the adrenaline.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So he gets them pumped, right? So that makes sense to me. What else have we got here? Who would win a Marty St. Louis versus Jeff Ducharme custody of Cole Caulfield ladder match? I mean, Dom's got the height, but I think Marty wins that because Cole would be hugged onto him like a koala.
Can I add something with Brendan Gallagher here? Like, I think before this week, my thinking of Brendan Gallagher wearing the C would be like, I guess that would make sense because of the fact that he is this undersized guy who manages to play through adversity. And I got the sense, I guess still get that sense that players still like playing around him, and he does kind of pump everyone up. But hearing Martin St. Louis in the limited amount of time he was around the team make it seem as if Tyler Toffoli was the captain without wearing the C. And he even reiterated that during a one-on-one interview with John Liu that was heard during the TSN broadcast. That really kind of changed my mind a little bit about Brendan Gallagher wearing the C. Maybe just him as an assistant captain makes makes more sense. And it really made me realize, or maybe really made me think that, just because you have all these challenges that have come up against you and you found yourself in the locker room and you're able to play in the NHL, it doesn't necessarily mean you should be captain, right? Like people like Josh Georges and what he means to a hockey team. Does that mean he should be a captain everywhere he goes? Maybe, maybe not. Paul Byron has some of the same similar qualities, played his 500th career NHL game, scored at his 500th NHL game tonight. Probably just a good A. And Brendan Gallagher, funny enough, at intermission as well, described him as a great role model for other guys. If they find themselves feeling sorry, they could look at a guy like Paul Byron. That's not necessarily a guy who necessarily needs to be a captain. And he seems to fit in his role just fine. A lot of people like him for what he's doing. So I don't know who the next captain of this team is. Maybe it could be Nick Suzuki. Maybe you slap it on him for next season as a sign to show that he is the guy who's going to lead the core going forward to prominence. But I guess I'm not as high on Brendan Gallagher as captain for this team anymore. And Martin St. Louis' assessment of of Tyler Toffoli kind of changed my mind on that.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I mean, I haven't gotten a chance to talk about the Toffoli trade. I guess did you get a chance to on Sunday? I don't remember if it happened before or after the game.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, I don't remember if I talked about him that much. Well, I mean, it happened like after Sunday, so it wouldn't have been
Right.
traded yet.
So let's talk about that trade because I
Yeah.
was on team keep Toffoli, just because the way that Hughes and Gorton had talked is that they didn't want to do a deep rebuild, but based on the fact that they have traded Toffoli, I think the writing's on the wall that they are going to do a bit of a deeper rebuild, and this is not going to be a trying to be competitive 2 years from now situation. I think that they want to be like not trying to lose, like basically playing how they are right now, right? Where they're playing with passion and they want to win games, but they're also not going to put the best roster out there because you just don't trade a guy like Tyler Toffoli if you want to win in the short term. And his contract is so good. I still think I got a lot of pushback on Twitter for saying it that the return to me was a little bit underwhelming just because Emil Heineman is like a B-level prospect, not an A-level prospect, and just the combination of the term left on Toffoli's contract, which essentially gives the Flames 3 potential cup runs with him. His contract, like how much it pays, is ludicrous. The fact that he's been a first-line player for 6 of the last 7 years, I don't know. I think that they could have got a little bit more if they'd waited maybe, but at the same time, first round picks, not a
I
bad
don't
thing.
know, man.
Decent
Yeah, like
prospect who
that's
can
it.
score goals isn't a bad thing. The other two pieces were just throw-ins to me. I mean, Tyler Pitlick is a warm body, and a 5th round in 2024, that's either a trade piece or something for 10 years from now.
That's very true. I don't know. I thought the deal was fair. I understand he's played top line minutes in Montreal and for other markets that he's been in. We saw him with the Flames. He's a third line guy to them. He's a guy who's going to contribute to
Second line.
Second line, but he's still a secondary scorer. Like they're not going to rely on him the same way that they're going to rely on Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary. But yes, he is still a good scorer and he is on a good contract. But the Canes got a first round pick for him. And the teams that were going to go for a guy like Tyler Toffoli were going to be late in the first round in terms of the first round picks they would give up for a guy like him anyway. Emil Heineman, you could argue it's more or less like getting a second round pick back. He was drafted in the second round. He was involved in that Sam Bennett trade that sent him from Florida to Calgary. Now he finds himself in in the Canadiens organization. I'm not going to get lost into what the player comparisons are because I have not watched him play. But the fact that they have another prospect in their system, I think that's good for them going forward. The Canadiens should be in the business of getting prospects in their stable and seeing what they can get for them in their core going forward. Not to mention the 5th round pick and another warm body that at the end of the day, as they're going to lug through these games where they're not going to win all that much, they need warm bodies on this team who are just going to kind of help them go through the motions and go from game 1 to game 82. In their seasons going forward. I thought the trade was fair, but I will say that with what he meant to the team in such a short time, there was a part of me that thought it would be cool for this core if Tyler Toffoli got to stick through it. I think he had that quote with Cole Caulfield where he was saying he was telling Cole Caulfield.
That was sad.
That kind of gave me like Iron Man, Spider-Man vibes in Infinity War. He's like, don't go. Like, yeah, like that's how I felt about that. Reading that got vibes like that. But Tyler Toffoli, in the short time he's been there for this Montreal Canadiens team, an impactful player. I believe led them in goals last year. Scored the OT series winner against the Winnipeg Jets in the second round in a short amount of time. Meant a lot to the Montreal Canadiens. Meant a lot to the Canadiens fans as well. Just goes to show it doesn't matter. You don't have to play 300 games or. You could be 100 games. You could make an impact for your team if you do some good things. And Tyler Toffoli seemed like he did.
Yeah. And like it was pointed out on social media yesterday, I think that if you ignore the little stop in Vancouver, Tyler Toffoli has followed the exact same career arc as Mike Camilleri. Start in LA, go to Montreal, bomber playoff, get traded to Calgary, although not in the middle of a game. So he's got that going for him, which is nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully a little bit better of a return overall for Toffoli than they got for Camilleri. But yeah, I think the main thing that's going to be interesting to look at by the time we get to the draft is going to be less about what the Canadiens got for each specific player that they move out. It's going to be what are the total accumulated assets. And I think that's where we're going to look back and say there's a potential for creating the next core of the team, because they're going to get a first round pick for Ben Chiarot. Like, that's insiders been saying that all year long. Seems like that talk's only been heating up. The only way they don't get a first round pick for Chiarot is if they get a really high end prospect or like NHL ready player, which I've been teasing. I've heard that name out there. I keep on teasing Steve. I just say Rasmus Sandin, just a little lightly used Rasmus Sandin for Ben Chiarot.
Yo, have you seen the tweets about the podcast today, the CJ show? A few people were like, I think even Dom Luszczyszyn was all like, man, the Leafs have not learned from acquiring Nick Foligno. A lot of people kind of lost their minds at the idea that not only are the Leafs interested, they might be very interested in Ben Chiarot. That was a really interesting thing to hear. And I kind of had to ask CJ, like, so what you're saying right now is there's a growing sense that the Leafs are a front runner. He kind of had to like check himself a little bit, like, okay, like to be a little bit more clear, the Leafs are very interested, but there seems as if a lot of fans in Toronto are not happy about the prospect of getting Ben Chiarot.
I mean, if I was a Leafs fan, I would also not be very happy, especially considering the price tag. But a Dill Pickle here asks, do you think that's just Chiarot's people pumping his tires? I don't think so, because I don't think there's a lot of benefit to that. I think, if anything, if the stuff coming out about the Leafs is not necessarily leaking from the Leafs, I think it's probably other teams putting the Leafs out there to like make the spotlight on the Leafs, right? So like they can get something done or like look at another player, because the Leafs absorb a lot of the spotlight. Let's be honest. It might not all be coming from the Maple Leafs. We'll have to wait on CJ's comment from that, but Chiarot's going to get a big return. I feel like Florida has consistently been linked to him all season long, right?
St. Louis is linked to Chiarot as well.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't get to see him tonight, unfortunately, because he's out on the IR, but apparently that's a minor thing. I wonder if Chiarot plays another game for the Canadiens. I'm going to guess no.
Yep, we were talking about this. Like, if I'm Kent Hughes, I mean, I get you don't want to rush into these trades, and you should make the right move when it's there. But seeing how Ben Chiarot will play some games sometimes, will make some boneheaded plays or take penalties, commit a turnover, an unforced error. Like, if I was Kent Hughes, there's a part of me that's like, I don't really want him to decrease his trade value any more than he might have. I'm sorry. There are some games I'm looking at and I'm like, if you're a scout coming to the Canadiens to watch him play, at what point do you say the trade mark, the asking price has to go down for Ben Chiarot? I think he has some good upside. I think he has some great qualities to him. He's a big body who can skate for the grinding style you need to win in the playoffs. He can clear guys out of the net. I get that. And he has some offensive capabilities. I get that. But he's done quite a few mistakes even before this terrible season for the Montreal Canadiens came to be. And I was a bit surprised to hear that he was like, there are teams that are, I mean, the asking price seems to be whatever David Savard got in the trade that sent him to Tampa Bay last year. But there are teams that are interested. There are people saying they're like up to like 12 teams might be in on Ben Chiarot. Is that an agent saying that? I don't know. But like, yeah, Ben Chiarot really he has like 9 points through so many games, and he might get a first round pick. Like, man, but remember, he's a UFA, and the Canadiens also are apparently willing to retain salary on him as well. So, hey, if it doesn't work out, you're a competitive team. You think he's that piece that's going to get you over the top. And if he doesn't work out, you could just kind of part ways with him. And if you're a contending team, again, like I said earlier, that first round pick was probably late in that round anyway. So it's not as if you're giving up on the opportunity to get Shane Wright. You're just missing out on maybe pick 27 or 28 in the draft. So there are worse things than giving up a late first round pick for Ben Chiarot, especially if you feel he can contribute to your team. But still, a first round pick for Ben Chiarot, like, man, like it's pretty interesting to see how that asking price has gotten to that point. Plus a third or whatever else was in that deal.
It is hard to believe because, frankly, like, as much as I was bugging Dom this morning, I was saying, like, stop talking about Ben Chiarot's stats. Wait till after the trade deadline, Dom.
I feel like so many people have been doing that.
But, like, the numbers have been out there for Ben Chiarot for his whole career. Like, frankly, There's a reason why when Dom posted his profile today, or it wasn't Dom, might have been Dom, and it might have been Jay Fresh as well.
Yeah.
And it was like WAR percentile 0.
Dom wrote about him in 16 stats today. I know that for sure. Yeah, he wrote about him today. So maybe both of them.
He's not a very good impact player in terms of goals for and goals against, but people love his physicality in the playoffs. That's what they're looking for. Someone says here, we got to GoFundMe to buy out Petry's contract. Man, I got to tell you folks, you are heavily underestimating how valued Jeff Petry is around the league. I know he's had a rough year and people are frustrated, and I think you can say very fairly that he's sulked a little bit during the year and maybe not put in the effort that he should have in certain points. But like, these people are also humans, right? He's been separated from his family almost the entire year. They've been in Detroit. Yes. He's been in Montreal, traveling around with the team. That takes a toll on a person. It's been a rough couple years for all of us. And yes, he's making lots of money, but that doesn't make his family magically appear at his doorstep this season. And it doesn't take the pain away of going out there and losing every game and feeling like everything you touch turns to garbage, right? So I look at Jeff Petry, the underlying numbers are still really, really strong. Even while he was really struggling, they were relatively strong as long as you controlled for what kinds of minutes he was playing. He's not making that much money, man. For a first pair defenseman, 6.25 is not that much. The term is not that bad at 3 years. Like, yeah, he's getting up there in age. That makes it a little bit more difficult, but everything that I read around the league or hear around the league is that if the Montreal Canadiens try to trade Jeff Petry, it's not going to have to be at a discount. They're going to get decent value for him. The only thing that's going to be a hiccup is finding a team that can take on the term. And if that means that he doesn't go to a contender this year, that's fine. They might not get like a first round pick per se, but they might get prospects or a package of some sort of maybe a slightly younger defenseman. Who knows? But I don't think the Jeff Petry trade is going to be that difficult for Kent Hughes to make. And I don't think the return is going to be underwhelming either.
Yeah. It's also cool to hear Kent Hughes just kind of along the same vein as how he kind of discussed Ben Chiarot earlier this week, that he's not afraid to make that trade if the right deal is out there. And he's not going to necessarily force a bad move. And that applies to Jeff Petry. Absolutely. I also got bored and I went on Cap Friendly and I used the buyout calculator thing. And I think if the Canadiens were to even do that with Jeff Petry, not saying they should do that, I think it would be a really dumb idea for them to do. A cap hit of $3,083,333 for the next 2 seasons, that rises to $4.5 million the year after. And then for the last 3 years of up until 2028, he would count for $1.33 million as a cap hit. So
smart.
I don't know if that's worth it, especially if the cap is gonna rise like minimally. Again, not something that should be taken seriously. Someone just asked the question. I just wanted to just see for myself.
Yeah, Greg Bayer says Petry had a 46% expected goals for percentage with Ducharme and has a 55.7% expected goals for under St. Louis. Yeah, and he also led the team tonight. I think it's the second or third game in a row he led the team in expected goals for percentage. So like, he's doing his job. I think Petry's fine. If he ends up getting traded, that's fine because they got to rebuild, but I don't think it's necessarily something that has to happen this year unless he really wants it. And it seems like Hughes keeps on saying he's open to it, but hasn't requested a trade. So I don't think this is a situation where they're up against it, right? And this is something that I wanted to ask CJ about. Like, I kind of built a game and I was like, going to go through the Habs roster and I was like, if this player is going to move, is it going to be like deadline, draft, or next deadline? Because one of the few advantages that Hughes and company have with all these players locked into term is that they don't actually have a rush to trade them, right? Outside of Chiarot, like, these guys, if they just stay around the next season, the team's going to be bad. They don't need to trade them right now. So they can wait for a more opportune time if teams have more space in the summer or there's a spot next deadline. there it goes. It's not a big deal. So, yeah, someone said, Thomas says, kind of fucks your reputation to ask for a trade. I don't think that's true. There are certain people in the NHL who feel that way. I know Brian Burke, as a manager, felt that way. There's a story out there about, you remember Peter Zezel, or is that before your time, Julian?
A little bit before my time, but I remember the name.
He was a good player, and he's like, at the end of his career, he wanted to be like nearer to his family. I believe one of his parents had cancer, and he asked for a trade from Brian Burke, and Burke literally sent him to the team furthest away from where his parents lived, out of like pure spite, because it's like, I don't want to be asked for a trade from a player. That's like disloyalty. And it's that old school attitude is I don't think as many modern managers feel that way. I think that if a player wants a different situation, like, even I found Mark Bergevin, when he was here, when players asked him for a trade, he was pretty respectful to accommodate them. Right. So, and Bergevin is a pretty old school guy. So I think modern managers view it much differently than I think most of us do.
What do you think Jack Eichel, what's the reputation around Jack Eichel now? And I understand his circumstances were a little bit different, but like,
I mean, the fact that he's back in the league already says Jack Eichel was right. They should have let him get that surgery, right?
Should have let him get that surgery. I get that Buffalo needs to rebuild his rebuild, but like, if I'm a Buffalo Sabres fan, sorry, Dwayne, but like, geez, like I feel you're going to be in for some painful times. I know the first game against Colorado didn't look all that great, but like, I think Jack Eichel's going to fit just fine in Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know what this person's talking about here. The ref app says, I just don't think Caulfield has much of a future in the league. He's going to be a good player, no doubt, but I see him more as a Hoffman than a St. Louis. I mean, I don't think he's going to be Martin St. Louis, but I think it's very clear that he plays with much more dynamic skill than Mike Hoffman. Like, Mike Hoffman does one thing, right?
Yeah.
And he does it very well. He's a spectacular shooter from a distance, but Cole Caulfield brings a lot more than that.
Cole Caulfield, there was a play earlier in the game. I believe it was Cole Caulfield who kept the puck from exiting the offensive zone. He took a puck off a player who was trying to exit the zone for the Blues and helped create a chance with Nick Suzuki. I don't think Mike Hoffman does that. He does not have that in his game. I think an underrated part of Cole Caulfield's game, he will dig for pucks and he will make plays. Mike Hoffman's not a playmaker. He's a hired gun to score. Cole Caulfield has skills to be a playmaker.
Yeah, I see Cole Caulfield has like game breaker potential. Not as like a superstar, but he can break open games, and we saw that tonight. Mike Hoffman is a guy who's a complementary player who can score a ton because his shot is absolutely sick. Someone is saying, do you think Montreal goes after Nazem Kadri in the offseason? I've seen this a lot. I know Dangle floated it on the SDP, but I don't see why Kadri would do that. I know that the Canadiens were his team growing up, and they could be one of the teams that could afford to give him an absolute pile of money. But even if he wins the Cup this year with Colorado, I would assume that he doesn't want to go into a rebuild, and there's going to be teams lining up to pay him. Like, I don't see the fit for him.
I'd love how many of those contending teams have the money to do that, and that's why I think we're gonna have to figure out what his priorities truly are. Because remember, like, Nazem Kadri not getting any younger. It's not a guy at 27 looking for that big payday from somebody. He's in his early 30s, maybe trying to bank on some team saying, hey, you know what? Like, we're willing to give you all this money for what you're doing this year, which is well above what he's done in his career to this point. I think if the Canadiens got him, it probably goes against. Actually, you know what? I think of it in the same vein as Dougie Hamilton when he joined the New Jersey Devils, a guy who you sign basically just to be like, hey, you know what? We have this big fancy piece that in about 2-3 years, when we actually get better, he's really going to look good on our team. Nazem Kadri, in this case, he'll be a little bit older if the Canadiens were to even do that, but at least your center depth with Kadri and Suzuki is pretty settled. And even if he ends up going further down in the depth chart, like, he should still be a solid center to have, provided he doesn't get himself suspended for some dumb reason.
Which is not an unknown for him. he does do that. I don't know.
But in spite of that, he's a good player.
Yeah,
like,
he's
I know
great.
that stuff that's happened. He's a good player.
And I feel like Nas is one of the few guys that you would be able to bring into a situation like Montreal and not have to worry about him being a head case because of the pressure. right? He's already played in Toronto. There's pressure in Colorado to win right now. I think that he would be able to come here and not be stressed out about it. I think he'd thrive in that situation. But at his age and just what he's going to command, I feel like it's one of those situations like by the time the Canadiens are going to be a competitive team at the cap number they would have to sign him at, it would turn into him being a good player, but still a bad contract at the wrong time. So I just don't see the fit there, but I do love Naz. If the Canadiens signed Nazem Kadri, I would not be that upset. I would love seeing him play every night. He's a great player and also
It'd be a cool
shit
signing.
disturber, and everyone loves their own shit disturbers, right? One thing I did want to mention, because I didn't get a chance to talk about it when the Toffoli trade happened, was we talked a bit about like the differences in management styles. And Julian, you mentioned that Hughes has been very open about like the idea of like when Chiarot might be traded and the idea of moving Jeff Petry. One thing that really stuck out to me in his little press conference about the Toffoli trade was that he spent a day essentially reaching out to Emil Heineman and making sure that he knew that he was a requested part of the trade and not just like a courtesy throw in along with the first round pick. Because that's something that I think Bergevin really struggled with, was connecting with young players and making them feel valued. And you also saw that come through with Kent Hughes reaching out to Harris in the NCAA,
Jordan Harris,
who now believes that he's going to sign here, which Marc Bergevin didn't talk to Harris for over a year or something like that. I believe it was reported when he talked to Marc-Antoine Godin at the beginning of the season. And he was like, well, if he doesn't want to sign here, what can we do? I love the proactive approach that Kent Hughes is approaching things like an agent more than a GM. He's talking to players on their level, and his approach is just different, right? You can see it very clearly just based on the reactions of players. I think that's going to be really beneficial to the Montreal Canadiens going forward.
It looks like it could. I thought what he did with Heineman was a pretty cool thing to do. It just goes to show that the Canadiens actually value him as a prospect in this organization. And again, the Canadiens are in a position right now where they need to accumulate as many of those as they can going forward to make their team better. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool to hear that. I can't really speak to how Bergevin would deal with those players in the past, but the fact that the Jordan Harris portfolio, there was a lot of concern around it. I know Harris wanted to stay at school because he values his education and he wanted to get himself his degree, which I think was in was it business administration? It was some kind of business finance degree. I'm sorry, I don't remember it specifically, but Jordan Harris wanted to stay in school. It also just helps for Kent Hughes that he has that relationship with Jordan Harris because of the his son plays at the same university. There's the connections that are obviously there, but I think the fact that Kent was able to make that connection, was able to say that he felt confident that he would sign here at the end of the year, that is a very positive development in the Jordan Harris dossier for the Montreal Canadiens. That's a young player that they need around their organization for years to come, especially when it comes to their defense. So yeah, that was also a very big surprise to hear during that press conference between Toffoli, the talk about Chiarot, the talk about Petry, Jordan Harris. He kind of mentioned Carey Price and said that he believes he could try to come back this year. I'm not. I think that was like the only thing he said that was a little bit shaky to me. I kind of have to see it to believe it. Maybe he does come back. It would be a big story, obviously, but I think everything else was really interesting to hear him speak openly about.
Yeah. I the whole Carey Price situation is so unfortunate. Like I hope we get to see him play this season, just because I'd like to know that he is healthy enough to do it. You know what I mean? Like his knee's not falling apart. I do wonder if he doesn't play this year, if he does opt for retirement in the off season. It would be such an unfortunate end for Price. I feel like he deserves better. What else did we have here?
Did you see LDS before the game today say that the Canadiens have started looking into Ilya Samsonov in Washington?
I did see that because I saw not Renee from Black Girl Hockey Club, Saucy Rockets was saying Nick Suzuki, please, and I was like, how dare you?
Okay, that's not gonna happen.
No,
But
that's not going to happen.
that was really interesting to see. Like on the subject of Carey Price, like why, like considering what the goaltending situation is like, why would you have interest in Ilya Samsonov? That's very
I
interesting
mean,
to see.
Bryce is going to be 35 in the offseason, right?
Right.
He's the same age as me, so you got to start planning ahead. And I think maybe having seen Caden Primo a little bit this year, they're thinking they got to boost that goaltending position a little bit, because you look at what Jeff Gordon had in New York, and they continually had tons of good goaltenders in that organization. They weren't satisfied with just having Lundqvist. They brought in Georgiev and Shesterkin, who's a friggin' Hart Trophy candidate this year. So I feel like the search to bolster the Canadiens' goaltending depth is ongoing right now. And I don't know if it's too much to read into the Price situation on that, but there's definitely something there. I mean, whether it's just they know that there's an expiration date on Price, or whether they think that he might not be able to come back, it's something to talk about for sure. I don't want to keep you too much longer, Julian, but
yeah, I understand it's like it could be like loose interest. It might not be a big thing to write about, but it was just something that was really intriguing for me to read.
Yeah, someone says Monty's not a future starter. I don't think so. I like what he's doing lately, but I think he's like at his age, if he hasn't proven it yet, he's probably not a future starter. I did see a question saying like they thought that I was going to talk more about Dodger Toffoli on the show. I mean, yes, we will all miss Dodger Toffoli. It's very sad that we've lost Dodger Toffoli in this organization, and the Calgary Flames tweeting "Welcome Dodger Toffoli" right away after the trade was disgusting and offensive.
It's twisting the knife.
I know, that's awful. How could you do this to us? But I will say, for those here, like, let us know in the stream chat if at some point in the near future you want us to do a Montreal Canadiens pets ranking or like rating, and we can do a show where we give them like a ranking out of 10 based on how much we like the pets.
People like pets. People like dogs, especially. I think people would gravitate to
that. Yes, please. Yeah. Okay, Robert. All right, we'll do it. We'll do a show. I'll pick a day where we have people who want to do that, and we'll do a pet ranking of Montreal Canadiens pets. I think that'd be a fun show. We got to talk about something while this team finishes out the rest of the year. What we'll do is we'll get everyone to submit their favorite Montreal Canadiens pets, and then we'll go through them on the show live. I'll do it so that I can actually upload it before the show, and we can show it on stream which pet we're talking about.
Yeah, because I have no clue who has what pets.
Neither do I. I know about Milo Suzuki. That's Suzuki's cat.
Okay.
No?
Okay. All right.
I've heard
I don't
of that
know.
one.
I don't know anything about these pets, bro. Like, I'm looking at these players. I don't care about pets. Sorry. I shouldn't say I don't care about pets. It's not something that I focus on.
Julian McKenzie, anti-animal. You heard it.
No, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. I don't want people going at me saying that. That's not true.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Does Marty St. Louis have a dog? We don't know. I don't know.
We don't know.
We got to find this out. We got to do some investigative journalism, folks. We got to find every single pet loosely associated with the Montreal Canadiens. And if we have bonus time on that day, maybe we'll get viewers to submit their pets, and I'll throw it into the OBS and we'll go through it. All right, I'm going to wrap it up because Julian's got work to do. I've got work to do covering the Olympics for my last episode of Game Over International, which is live tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I'm going to do this one on my own, so I'll need the people who are going to be in the stream chat to give me some questions and talk to me. It's going to be the last one, and then on Sunday night at 8:30 p.m., it's going to be me, Omar, and Sean Fitzgerald is going to join us, and we're going to recap Canada's performance at the Olympics, what went wrong, what went right, best stories. And if you haven't seen the show from this morning that I did with Mikey Stevens and Erica Lindsay Ayala, please watch it because there's some great stories that we shared on that one, including one from Erica where you can actually see both of our minds get blown in the moment because it's such an amazing story, and that's what the Olympics are all about. So before we close this out, Julian, tell all the people at SDPN where they can find you.
The Athletic, I will be hopping off now to work on my plus minus column that comes out every either late Thursday night or Friday. Looking at the time, it's going to be a Friday release, it looks like. But yeah, I have that going for me, which is nice. Brand new episode of the Chris Johnston Show. I host that podcast. It is out. We talked about other things beyond Ben Chiarot. Also looking as if it's going to come on Friday, the Hockey Inside Out show from the Montreal Gazette, which I do with Stu Cow and Jessica Rusnak and Rick Green, former number 1 overall pick of the Washington Capitals. He knows a thing or two about losing, but he's a great guy. He won a Stanley Cup with the Canadiens, eventually ended up behind the bench as well. I just like ribbing him on the fact that he was on the Capitals and he has a minus. Zone Time. We talked about a really cool idea this week. Myself, Justin Cuthbert, Avery Lewis McDougall, and Tic Tac Tomer actually. What if during the World Cup we put together a team with players of West Indian descent? Like you add that at Team West Indies. I think it's a good idea. Avery pulled out his Trinidad and Tobago jersey straight from the Mighty Ducks 2. That was a really good time. I have a lot going on, and I can't wait for this week to be over so I could just take a long rest for the weekend. And I'll be back on Sunday to host Game Over Montreal one last time.
Hell yeah, you will. He says one last time. I'm like, Julian, you want to host some more?
Oh, I got to start saying no to stuff.
I hear that. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us for the stream. Thanks everyone for listening. And we'll be back. I mean, Julian will be back on Sunday, as you mentioned, and I'll be back next week to host the rest of the season for Game Over Montreal, most likely. We won't burden Julian with too much more.
Someone already tweeted, hey, I'm anti-animal. You see what
no.
did? It's not true.
Oh, God. Between this and the fake CJ accounts, we're going to ruin Twitter.
Oh, my God. You going to ruin my life.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julian. I am. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you don't like eggs.
I'm getting out of this podcast. You have yourself a good rest of the night.
See you guys next